In the quiet hills of Adamo Estate, where the mornings hum with the sound of mosque prayers and distant military drills, there sits an old mansion, silent, proud, and full of secrets. It belonged to a man called Stormy. Once a boy with a notebook, now a high-ranking government official with sirens at his service and a name that turned heads. But no matter how far the wind carries a bird, it never forgets the tree where it first took flight. A black SUV drove off the main street and turned into a gated estate road. Policemen at the security post saluted with exaggeration and the two vehicles went past them without any acknowledgement. They stopped in front of a luxurious mansion and the doors opened. Stormy stepped out. His dark shades hide his age, but not his thoughts. The moment his feet touched the terrace of the building, his phone rang and he simply glanced at the screen of the phone and picked the call. "Unknown number," he said, answering his phone. A familiar laugh busted through and a gentle smile quickly formed on his face. "My guy. You still deform unknown number, like we didn't share plates of Gabzer for Government Day Secondary School Adamoa." It was the familiar voice of Skino. Stormy was frozen with surprise. Skino. No way. They had a few moments of sharing pleasantries and recollections and his mind quickly went back to the past as they made fun of each other messing with each other. Back to Government Day Secondary School, nestled inside Yola Army Barracks, where boys grew into men under the watchful eyes of military RPs, the canes from senior school prefects and the knocks on the heads from teachers like Mr. Arbarkara, and the smell of chalks. They recalled the early 90s and the usual early morning routines. The bugle blares. Students running to avoid getting late to school, students going to school farms for agricultural practical, students running and hiding from military RP to avoid punishment when they err, students queuing and struggling to collect their plates of food at the dining hall before prep, young lovers hiding in corners for good moments, big boys forming too big and too good to eat from school food. The nostalgic flashback was getting too extensive as they also recalled duties and responsibilities during the morning rush. Students rushed as usual to Assembly Hall for the morning assembly and Stormy was already there, standing tall at the press club corner with a microphone ready for announcements and duty calls. Skino, shirt well tucked in, always doing a good job sneaking and escaping a Scripture Union member trying so hard to bring him into their fellowship. Joe, buttoned to the neck, clutches a physics textbook, eyes and mind fixed on Sadie, a junior student, beautiful with a calm, soft gentle smile. Randy, silver watch on wrist, speaks Hausa fluently but dreamed in British English. His father was a major general and he had a lot going well for him as compared to his peers. The school day rolled in and rolled out and they all went back their separate homes. But their hookups doesn't just end with school things. As evening gradually welcomes the night, they got themselves hanging out at Mammy Market. They strolled around the market area and sometimes they just got a nice place to sit and watch the hustle and bustle that the night brought up. They got themselves one night to a spot and sat on a wooden table under dim yellow bulbs. The boys were eating suya and fried yam. Boys from different tribes, laughing in one tongue. Skino stuck meat into his mouth and said, "Joe, just tell Sadie you love her. Tell her how you feel. This your gentle boy's spirit is boring." Joe was nervous. "Skino, I wish I can, I really love to but I can't. She walks like she knows too much. She is probably in a relationship with someone else." "Well, none that I know of if you ask me," Skino assured. Stormy quietly jotted something in his brown notebook that simply reads, "Be bold. Write love. Don't chase it. Stop being a sissy." They laughed and out of nowhere, Sadie suddenly appeared and walked by slowly, looking back at them and waving with a beautiful smile. Her eyes met Joe's, but not for long because she wasn't aware of his interest in her. She only saw him occasionally with the rest of the friends who were all in press club with her but not Joe. Those were the days of tuck-ins, demerits, and garbser, in school beside Alcatraz, Arcara and bread at Mammy Market. But there was also something else brewing. Whispers. Secrets. Shadows that clung to Sadie. She was not just a beautiful sweet-looking girl that was well admired and interested by many, she was not an ordinary girl. And her pain was quietly dangerous. On the eve of one of the numerous school parties, GDSS buzzes with celebration. Music from the big sound system could be heard across every corner of the school premises. Portable radios were seen with fun lovers and dancing students who could get into the party hall, girls in jeans smuggled from home. Firewood smoke curling into the stars. Sadie in tears approaches Randy near the science lab. Her mood contrasted the general mood that was evident in the school that evening as she folded her arms across her chest and almost in tears. "You said you'd claim it. I didn't ask for marriage. Just the truth," she said. Randy became obviously harsh. "My father is not sponsoring scandal. You knew what this was and you were down with it and whatever comes up." She walked away and Randy walked past her and led the way. Joe follows from a distance, unnoticed, and they eventually entered the press club office, but Joe pauses at the door, eavesdropping and peeping through an opening. Inside, there was raised voices and the argument was intense. A scream and then silence. Joe ran back in search of Skino, but he easily found Stormy and told him all that he just witnessed. They hurriedly returned back to the press club office. The office was empty. By morning, Sadie was gone. Her locker emptied. Her name whispered. Behind the press club was a red smear on the wall. Someone had tried to wipe it but didn't make a good job of it. No information was available from the press club and the school said nothing related to her. And the boys took a vow of silence. A silence that lasted 3 decades. Skino said with a visibly breaking voice. "I got a letter, no name, just one word, confess." Stormy now staring at the photo on his desk. "What about Joe?" "That's another problem," Skino said. "He's been panting like a madman. He says he sees her every night. That she speaks to him. Can you just imagine such a nonsense talk? Joe's walls are covered with paintings. Each one shows the look of Sadie on that fateful day. Sadie appears in the corner of every canvas, looking sad or bleeding." Stormy quickly added Joe as a conference call and they went straight into the matter at hand. "You saw what happened, didn't you?" Stormy asked. Joe said quietly with a wave of panic, "She was pregnant. Randy knew. He hit her and she fell. That was all. She begged me before the incident not to tell anyone. I was surprised that she could confide in me because that was my first time really getting to talk to her about my feelings for her." "Why is she appearing to you and not any other person?" Stormy asked. "I don't know, and I sincerely wished it is one of you, not me. She follows me everywhere." Joe said helplessly. "I guess she trusted him more than us for a reason," Skino said. Stormy said in deep thought. "We were kids. We thought silence would protect us. But guilt does not age, it flows, quietly underground. Until it finds a crack to spill through." And now it had found all 3 of them, except Randy, who had stayed gone. But with the development at hand, Stormy had to quickly take the next available flight to pay Randy a visit in Abuja. The matter had been under covers for over 30 years and the fact that it has resurfaced meant it had a damaging tendency. It needed to be handled swiftly. A mansion with guards at the gate stood conspicuously on a street corner in a luxurious estate in Abuja. Randy, now a senator, sits with a glass of brandy in his hand as he sat comfortably in his luxuriously furnished parlor listening nonchalantly to all that Stormy had to say. Then he said dismissively, "This is old story and there's no evidence. No body, no crime. I can't even remember where the body is. Stormy patience was tested in spite of his stress and effort, and he became visibly angry and said, "She was our friend. You silenced her and we helped. Meaning that if it had happened to me back then, that is what you guys would have done to me. I protected all of us, and that's what leaders do. In case you don't know," Randy corrected him with pride. "No. You protected yourself, and now the truth is knocking. She too was one of us and needed same protection. I admit we're stupid and scared back then, but like I said, the truth is knocking," Stormy said and stormed out of Randy's mansion. A few days later, Stormy gathered Joe and Skino and they returned back to the ground that history still holds as their formative ground. They walked through the abandoned Government Day school grounds. The trees swayed like watchers. They stopped in front of a dilapidated wall of what used to be their dining hall. As they stood there contemplating, their attention was attracted by a big black vulture that flew away from the top of a neem tree behind the old press office, and they stood staring. Skino shook his head in fear. "I am not going there," he said. "I have had too many nightmares over this, not to make it end today," Joe encouraged behind a mask of his fears. Stormy played a tape, Sadie's voice recorded during an old press club meeting. Towards the end, her voice faded into something unexpected. "If I disappear, let them know I fought. Let them know I forgave them all, but not the silence." Skino folded his both arm across his chest and moved silently back and forth in deep thought. But they had to do something. They were there already and they couldn't allow fear, guilt and emotion to force them to retreat. They were children of ex-military men, they couldn't surrender. They had to accomplish their mission there and then. They summoned courage and approached the neem tree and dug beside the tree. A rusted tin box that used to look nice and beautiful resurfaced. It was Sadie's. Inside was her blood-stained diary. Stormy removed the diary and flipped through the pages, and the last page with notes on, read, "If I don't make it, tell the truth. Let no other girl cry like I did." They were quiet, sorrowful, and full of regrets. All covered with guilt and shame that they couldn't even talk to each other as they stood looking down at the rusty box. They turned over the diary to a local journalist with full confession. A story that broke open decades of silence was viral but remained an open secret. Justice may have been partial, but some politicians couldn't just sit and watch Randy completely manipulating the justice system. Randy resigned under pressure. Joe checked into a clinic. Skino moved back to Yola to teach and head the science department of the same school that nurtured him. And Stormy began writing again. This time, he wasn't writing press club news and stories, but the truth. Hard-bleeding, human truth. Because when the past calls, it's not always for conversation. Sometimes it demands confession. And true confession. And in Adamoa, where neem trees still whisper old names that made their mark within the four walls of Government Day Secondary School, the wind remembers. It certainly remembers everything. Subscribe now for more interesting stories like this and more.